The royal borough of Anstruther gained its charter in 1587. Ainster, as it's called by local folk, was once two separate communities, Easter and Wester, and to get from one to the other in olden times, you would have to carefully cross the stepping stones of the Drill Burn. When King James V was wandering around his country in the disguise of a travelling player with bagpipes under his arm, his wish to go unnoticed and enjoy a simple life for a while took him to Anstruther. As he was about to cross the burn, a sharp-eyed beggar woman recognised him and immediately lowered her shoulder for him to hang on to, then, lifting her skirts, carried him across. He gave her a gold coin, and she delivered a benison or blessing on the king of a rather explicit nature. A secret society known as the Beggar's Benison was founded in 1739. The nobility and gentry met at Drill Castle. Rather surprisingly, this was one of the earliest erotic clubs in the world. Many items relating to the club have remained hidden at St Andrews University, the nature of them being unsuitable for display. However, one was auctioned off in Edinburgh recently and attracted a lot of press interest. However, in the 1920s, a retired army officer tried to revive the club, but without success. The castle, dated from 1663, has all but gone. A wall still exists in Whiteman's Wynd. The tower was once 60 feet high, the home of Sir William Anstruther. During his time, the waters of the Forth were regularly invaded by fleets of foreign fishing vessels, which he did not take kindly to. At every chance, he would sail out with his men and drive them off, earning him the nickname Fisher Willie. Charles II had supper here with Sir Philip Anstruther in its rather cramped quarters. It's a clear sail of some 400 miles from here to the Netherlands, and smuggling was to become rife for many years. Wines, spirits, tobacco, cloth, etc. were all brought regularly into the village. Notice the red pan-tiled roofs of many of the houses. These tiles were actually used as ballast in the Dutch ships, which then returned home laden with coal and linen. The height of Anstruther's prosperity came in 1883, when during the herring boom 9,000 barrels were coopered in a day by 76 tradesmen, and it was the busiest fishing port in Scotland. The Scottish Fisheries Museum is housed in a group of attractive buildings of historic and architectural interest around three sides of a cobbled courtyard. Here once stood the 15th century chapel of St Ailes, and the 16th century abbot's lodging is incorporated in the museum. Ecclesiastical associations and the connection with the fishing trade date back to 1318, when the land was given by the Lord of Anstruther to the Cistercian Abbey of Balmerino, with rights to build fishing booths. In return, the fishermen paid a levy of 100 salt fish per barrel to the abbot and monks. The museum opened in 1969 and has won many awards over the years, from the Civic Trust in 71, Architectural Heritage in 76, and in 1992, the Scottish Tourism Oscar for the best long-established visitor attraction. The Queen, Duke of Edinburgh, Princess Royal and the late Queen Mother have all visited. The story of fishing in the East Neuk goes back over 1,000 years. In the middle of the 1400s, Dutch, Flemish and German vessels visited our shores. Indeed, over 2,000 Dutch herring vessels fished off the Scottish Islands by the 16th century. And when James V encouraged families from Fife to settle in the Hebrides alongside the Dutch settlers, it seems the islanders preferred the Dutch and drove the Fifers away. Fishing communities are very close-knit, with marriage between local villages rare, and to outside country folk almost unheard of. Sons followed fathers into the trade, whilst the women folk would remain at home to mend the nets and bait the lines, no mean task, with 100 hooks on each line. They also sold the catch around the local villages, and if the boats worked off the beach, would help launch and berth the boats, and even carry their husbands out to the boat to keep them dry. Fisher lassies followed the herring shoals around Scotland, England and Ireland. It was hard work, standing over open troughs in all weathers, their hands often a mass of sores and wounds from working in the brine in which the herring soaked. Many traditions and superstitions still exist. A boat would never be turned in harbour against the sun, and when first leaving shore would always be rowed sunways. Those who went to bring a new boat to its home port for the first time had to set off when the tide was flowing. It was unlucky to return without her. When a new fishing line was being made, it had to be started on the outgoing tide and had to be finished without any interruption. Certain words must never be spoken on board. Alternatives are used: curly-tail for pig, lang-tail for rat, man in black coat for a minister, red fish for a salmon. If any forbidden word was uttered, the crew would cry out, "Cold iron," and catch hold of the nearest piece of iron. More of this fast disappearing way of life can be discovered at the Scottish Fisheries Museum, which follows a sequence for the visitor, starting with an appreciation of fish, methods of catching and handling from the earliest times to the present day, the lives of the fisherfolk, boat building and even present-day fish farming. Also, the museum has some 15 vessels in its care, including the Reaper, a Fife drifter, which is sailed by the museum as a type of roving ambassador. The oldest inhabited manse in Scotland is Melville Manse. The manse has an interesting history. This was where Archbishop Sharp spent the night before being murdered the following day on Magus Muir. There are also tales of a ghostly lady in a flowing green dress, reckoned to be Lady Melrose, who committed suicide here.